Welcome back. We continue now our focus on reducing gun violence and gun deaths. And even the most ardent advocates for gun control would have to admit that in America in 2014, guns remain popular. Perhaps that is because of their continued popularity in our pop culture.
Well, get on with it,
Watch it, it's loaded.
So it always has been, going back to our westerns in the 50s, just in pop culture. So can that popularity be reversed, and if so, how? Joining us in this segment is Rich Mallow. He is the New York State Executive Director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And you may ask, what does drunk driving have to do with guns and gun safety? Think back to the 1970s if you can. Smoking, drinking, and drunk driving, far more prevalent in our pop culture and in our society. And since then, smoking is down, drinking down, drunk driving down, guns for some reason are not down. And Rich, how much of that is because of aggressive public campaigns in specific areas of concern, like Mothers Against Drunk Driving?
Well, I think it revolves around all of that. I mean, it's about grassroots. It's about organizing that group of people to one focus, one mission, and staying within that mission in its entirety. You know, Mothers Against Drunk Driving over the years has been about eliminating drunk driving, servicing the victims of drunk driving crashes, and eliminating underage drinking. We don't deviate from our mission. We stay focused on it, and we go state by state, and we also go nationally. So it's a numbered approach, and it's just stay on mission and keep people engaged.
And MAD was founded by people who had lost loved ones to drunk driving incidents.
Yeah, MAD was founded by a woman on the West Coast who lost a child in a drunk driving crash and quite frankly was enraged. And there was another woman in Florida and same thing happened, and they came together and started the organization.
How did the organization extend its reach beyond those who had been personally touched by the tragedy to actually start tugging on other people's heartstrings and changing their hearts and changing their minds?
When you lose a child and you meet other people that have experienced the same things, it quickly ties people together. And when you get people, and you know, we're Mothers Against Drunk Driving, but this is also about the dads and the brothers and the sisters and the moms and the aunts and the uncles and the extended families. When you get those people working all for the same cause, you can move mountains. And you have to do it on a local level, then you have to go to a state level, then you can go to the federal level.
And MAD also took advantage of, there was no social media in the 80s.
None.
As this was expanding, but MAD was very effective with public service announcements and advertising. We have a couple of examples we want to show you at home.
It's just as if we stepped into a nightmare that we can't get out of. And going to the morgue to identify the bloody, broken body of your child is not something you ever get over. It's something that stays with you forever. You want to forget and you can't.
Rich, do you know how significant those PSAs and ones like them were in changing attitudes about drunk driving?
Well, I think that's what changed.
You think that's what did it?
So much so that in legislation in New York, someone who is convicted of drunk driving has to go to what we have victim impact panels. And what they are is victims who, and generally one to three victims. They have all of, you know, the people that were convicted of drunk driving in a room, and they tell their stories. And it's graphic, and it's heart-wrenching, and it's the moms and the dads that and the brothers and the sisters that go and do this. And you know what? It is just as impactful today as it was in the early 80s. And that's what moves people.
Do you know if there was blowback at the time, that it was somehow too graphic or too?
There was,
because we get
I haven't heard of any pushback back then. I certainly know there's not pushback now, and I'm directly involved with it. We get comments back from the convicted offenders thanking us, thanking the people that put on the victim impact panels, saying this is not only going to stop me from doing it again, but it's going to make me go out and talk with other people and tell them not to do it.
And I just want to make the connection now to the issue that we all began with, which is guns, because Alex, Everytown, the group that you're involved with Moms Demand Action, is also beginning to get into that sort of approach as well. And I just want to play for everybody a clip from Everytown of a new PSA that's out.
2, 1.
Is this where this debate needs to head? Is it hearts and minds as opposed to ballot boxing politicians?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I know what brought me to this movement and instilled such passion in me was the thought of losing my son, who was in kindergarten at the time of the Newtown tragedy, and I really, I just identified with those parents who had lost their kids. And as I learned more about the devastation of gun violence and the 8 kids who are lost every day, my passion has just grown. And I think what it is really providing knowledge to parents and tugging at their heartstrings with PSAs like that, because you can imagine that being your children. You can imagine what that loss will feel like. And this was what will drive people to action. And it will drive them to action, and we're asking people to become gun sense voters, voting for candidates based on their political, whether they support gun sense or not.
There was a time, as we alluded to earlier, that you go to the movies and everybody was drinking, sometimes drinking and driving, everybody was smoking. We've reached a period where really it's only the bad guys who do that. You can tell who the bad guy is in the movie because they're smoking more often than not, or if a character is going to do something irresponsible with drinking and driving, they're usually cast as the bad guy. Is that where we need to go with guns? And do you think that would work? And Obi,
Well, there's a lot of issues here. And the first thing that cannot be overlooked is the difference between the issue with MAD and guns is the Second Amendment. And you can't overlook that, okay, at all, because there is a constitutional right to own and bear arms. It's not a constitutional right to drink and get behind a wheel. It's not a constitutional right to have a driver's license. So there's a very different issue. Secondly, the money that they spent with MAD was fabulous when you bring the issue to the forefront and you show the hazards and the tragedies of drinking and driving, and say, if we lower the drinking, if we raise the drinking age, if we lower the limit for drunk driving,
and if we put people
and
away
do different
who break
things,
the law,
these are things we can go out and fix and lower, and awareness too, and lower it and bring it to a safety aspect. The NRA spends millions of dollars a year on safety. There are aspects all over the country of teenagers, when they have weapons, going with their parents and learning gun safety. That ad was very effective, but that ad was also not about banning weapons, it was about safety. That weapon should have been locked at home and kept safe, and that was the parent's responsibility and the owner of the weapon to do so. I grew up next door to the town detective. He didn't just have his service revolver that he carried up in Briarcliff where I was. There was a whole cabin full of rifles and other weapons, and it was locked. There is a safety aspect that is very different.
But here's my problem with what you're saying, Obi. In the first segment, I went through example after example after example after example, where there wasn't that safety protocol in place, and there doesn't look like there's any charges that's going to be filed in any of those cases. And the NRA, the group that you say promotes gun safety, would fight tooth and nail to make sure that you don't expand those penalties for somebody who's in that situation. They're fighting everything tooth and nail. And so my next question to anybody who wants a shot at it, is the NRA hurting itself in the long run by not at least accepting some sort of sensible gun safety provisions here? Because it really seems like they become very extreme in the position.
What's sensible and what's not, though? I guess that's the question. And if you live in New York City, or if you live in Missouri, or Mississippi, or Alabama, Texas, I mean, who here has fired a weapon? Who at this table has fired? We've all done it. I've gone hunting. I was in the military. We know the extreme challenges and how to handle a weapon properly, and what's got to be done, and keeping the weapon pointing down range.
Right, but we've
what all those
I would
safety
guess,
aspects
had
are.
a drink at the table, and MAD was not trying to stop anybody from drinking. They were trying to get people to drink responsibly, correct?
Drink responsibly. But you know what? It becomes a difficult message. I've had the opportunity to be at checkpoints on Long Island, and that's where, you know, the police, they set up roadblocks, they bring and check them sobriety. And it's just amazing to me in this day and age. The one I was at, we had 1,000 cars come through, and they arrested 11 people for blowing over .08. And they're well you know, once they get out there, they're well publicized. And it's just amazing, you know, I mean, it's still, as much as we go out there every single day with the awareness and with all this, we need to hold our legislators responsible and accountable, and then our judges accountable to sentencing what the law says they should be sentenced.
Andrew,
And it
you
doesn't
mentioned the situation in Georgia where the governor signed the
Guns everywhere, Bill.
basically guns everywhere. Let's look at this for a second. Why did he sign it? Let's think about this for a second. The governor of Georgia is expected to be up for a very tough re-election bid. So the governor of Georgia is playing to his base in the state of Georgia. I'm on your side. Let's have guns everywhere. That's what this is all about. It all comes down to politics. But they are taking on a formidable foe now, and that is mothers.
The gun lobby needs to, our politicians, need to decide whether they're going to protect the gun lobby or they're going to protect our kids.
It's either or.
Bottom line.
Bottom line.
Anything else is not acceptable.
And I hope Moms Demand Action and Everytown will also focus or give some energy to trying to make guns less popular, make them less palatable across portions of the society in much the same way that I think MAD has successfully done. I think there might be a model there. We could continue this the entire hour, but we do have some other things we want to get to, and we also want to get to you at home. We want to ask you to sound off on a second online question tonight. Our question is, should we try to make guns, for lack of a better term, less cool, as we've seen in some of those videos or video games or movies that we played earlier before? But Rich Mallow with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, thank you very much. Alex Dubroff, thank you as well. Insightful conversation, and I hope that people are coming away from this with a little more food for thought tonight. Once we get back into the politics, who knows how that's going to work out. Up next, they say he cheated a charity out of millions of dollars. Today, longtime community leader William Rapfogel entered a plea in his kickback scheme case. Our panel weighs in when we come back. Stay with us.